Voting. In the United States, women were granted the right to vote in 1920 by Sarah de Capua, Scholastic Books. Here's the table of contents: casting a vote, meeting the requirements, getting the vote, election day, keeping count, getting involved. We have true statistics, resources, important words, index, and about the author. Primary elections help choose candidates to run for U.S. President. Vote. Voting gives everyone a chance to voice his or her opinion. Casting a vote, Chapter 1. Have you ever chosen a leader for your classroom sports team, scout pack, or youth group? If the answer is yes, you probably voted. Voting is a way for groups of people to make decisions. It gives each person in the group a voice in choosing leaders and deciding on rules for the group to follow. The secret ballot was first introduced in Rome around 1 CE. Voting. A hard-won right and an important responsibility. The U.S. Constitution is a document that contains the laws for setting up the U.S. government and running the country. Fully adopted in 1791, the U.S. Constitution states that citizens who are at least 18 years old have the right to vote in a local, state, and nationwide election. The Founding Fathers of the United States designed the Constitution to give U.S. citizens a voice in the government. Until the 15th Amendment was passed in 1870, state and local laws often prevented African Americans from voting. However, not all countries give their citizens the right to vote. As a result, there have been many conflicts over voting rights. Even in the United States, certain groups struggled for many years to have the right to vote. These groups wanted to have a voice in how the country was governed. That is why voting is such an important responsibility, and why the United States encourages its citizens to get out and vote. In some countries, voting is a legal requirement. Polls provide voters with private booths so that others cannot see who they are voting for. Elections. An election is the process of choosing someone or deciding something by voting. Whenever an election is held, it's important that it be free and honest. A free election means that the voters have a choice of candidates to vote for. An honest election means that people are able to vote by secret ballot. This allows people to vote without fear of being punished because of how they voted. When people think of voting, they often think of voting for leaders. In the United States, leaders are needed for towns, states, and the nation. Local leaders include city council members and mayors. Governors and lieutenant governors are state leaders. National leaders include the president, vice president, and members of Congress. Sometimes, people vote on issues. For example, they vote on whether their taxes should be raised. Citizens might also vote on whether a highway should be built through their town. New bills regarding healthcare, education, and other state and local laws can be voted on as well. Groups sometimes organize a petition or formal request to have a certain issue be voted on by the general public. New residents of the United States must become citizens before they are allowed to vote. Chapter 2. Meeting the requirements. Each country has its own laws about voting. Here is the way voting works in the United States. A person must be 18 to vote. Voters must also be American-born or naturalized citizens of the United States. Naturalized citizens are people who move to the United States from other countries and then become U.S. citizens. Naturalized citizens cannot run for president. In the months leading up to a major election, volunteers often set up voter registration booths to encourage people to register. Before voting. Each state sets its own rules for participating in elections. It is important that voters check their state's voting laws. In most states, citizens have to register before voting. They must fill out registration forms to provide information such as their name, address, and age. They must also show proof of address, a bill, bank statement, or pay stub with their address proves that their address is real. In some places, people must align themselves with a political party. The United States has two major political parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. A voter who doesn't want to support either of these parties can register as an independent. An independent might follow a third party, such as the Libertarian Party or the Green Party. Barack Obama, Democrat. John McCain, Republican. During presidential elections, the Republican and Democratic parties each choose one nominee. Voter registration information is kept in an office called the registrar. The office is generally located in the voter city hall or town hall. The registrar keeps a list of all eligible voters living in the area. Usually a voter's name must show up on the registrar's list before that person can vote. Citizens can register to vote directly at the registrar's office. Why have parties? Political parties are important to a republic such as the United States. Basically, political parties provide a way for people with similar interests and goals to band together for political action. Political parties select candidates to run for public office, raise the funds for candidates to campaign, and also help inform voters about them. Political parties also explain issues important to an election. When candidates are elected, political parties help them accomplish goals while in office through advice and party support. Political parties often hold rallies to support their candidates. The freedom of the press has been guaranteed in the United States since 1791. Newspapers help citizens learn about important issues during elections. Staying informed. Another key step must be taken before a person casts a vote. Responsible voters need to know what they think about important issues. Local races usually focus on issues that matter to the community, such as taxes, building codes, and education. In national races, the focus is on issues that are important to the entire country, such as employment, terrorism, and immigration. Sometimes issues in local and national races are the same. When voting for leaders, voters have a responsibility to learn all they can about the candidates. Candidates are the men and women who are running for office in an election. Candidates give speeches and meet with voters before elections. They explain where they stand on issues that voters care about. Many candidates meet with voters face-to-face whenever they can. Getting the word out. In elections for major offices, such as the governor or president, candidates may debate online or on TV. Candidates discuss their ideas for addressing the concerns of voters. Candidates may also have a TV, radio, and newspaper ads. Websites contain information and videos about their positions on certain issues. Citizens may display posters, bumper stickers, and signs to show other voters which candidates they support. Debates are a great way to learn the differences between candidates. There are more than 40 political parties in the United States. The internet allows candidates to develop relationships with voters around the country. Many candidates use social media sites to spread their messages. They set up Facebook pages and Twitter accounts that people can follow. Some candidates create their own YouTube channels where they post short videos. These videos show them making campaign speeches, volunteering in the community, and talking directly to voters about important issues. the big truth. Getting the vote. When the U.S. Constitution came into effect in 1788, only white men who owned land were allowed to vote. Black Americans, women, Native Americans, and the poor were not eligible to vote. However, over the next 200 years, each of these groups worked hard to gain the right to vote and succeeded. African American men first legally voted in 1867. 3 years later, the 15th Amendment was adopted to guarantee their right to vote. It took nearly 100 years more for that right to become fully protected under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Women were granted the right to vote in 1920 through the 19th Amendment. The issue was originally brought to Congress in 1878 but was rejected. It took more than 40 years of organizing and earning the vote in several states for an amendment to be added to the U.S. Constitution. Before 1924, most Native Americans were not considered U.S. citizens. As a result, they were not allowed to vote. The Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 granted citizenship to all Native Americans born in the United States. This allowed them legally to vote.